Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alison Lagrange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on First Post. Hello and welcome to First Post Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alison Lagrange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. A stabbing attack at a bus station in the Israeli city of Haifa leaves one person dead and several wounded. Israeli police call it a terror attack and say the perpetrator has been killed. The Kremlin calls last week's Oval Office clash between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and US President Donald Trump unprecedented, blaming Zelensky for lacking diplomatic skills. An al-Qaeda-linked attack kills 11 soldiers in northern Niger near the Algerian border, further fueling the ongoing Islamist insurgency in the Sahel nation. Thailand considers constructing a wall along a section of its border with Cambodia to combat illegal crossings. This comes amid a growing international campaign to dismantle a vast network of illicit scam operations in the region. And a heatwave forces school closures across half of the Philippines' capital, Manila, as the Southeast Asian country enters its sweltering dry season. Hello and welcome. We start with updates from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Despite growing international pressure, the DRC has refused to engage in direct talks with the M23 rebel group that has made major advances in the country's east in recent months, killing over 8,000 people. The DRC says it instead wants to negotiate with neighboring Rwanda, which it accuses of backing the rebel group. The DRC's condition of direct talks with Rwanda resulted in a deadlock on the Angola-brokered peace talks last December. Since then, the rebel group has swiftly advanced and captured key cities in the DRC. Rwanda has neither confirmed nor denied the presence of its troops in DRC, but it has acknowledged taking measures to defend its territory. Both neighbors accuse each other of backing rival ethnic militia. The DRC accuses Rwanda of backing the ethnic Tutsi M23 rebels, while Kigali accuses Kinshasa of harboring and working with the militant group. The Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, or the FDLR, whose members include fighters from the 1994 Rwandan genocide. During the Rwandan genocide, about 1 million people, the vast majority of the Tutsi community, were slaughtered by ethnic Hutu extremists. The genocide ended with the advance of a force of Tutsi-led rebels, commanded by Paul Kagame, who is now Rwanda's president. After 30 years of conflict, one of the Hutu groups, the FDLR, which includes some of those responsible for the Rwandan genocide, is still active in eastern DRC. Rwanda accuses the Congolese authorities of working with the FDLR, and these are accusations which it denies. However, during the ongoing violence, Rwanda-backed rebels have come up with video to back its claims. The video shows the M23 rebels capturing 20 fighters from the FDLR and handing them over to Rwanda at a border post between the two countries. But the DRC military has called the video fake, It says Rwanda had taken old FDLR prisoners and dressed them in new military uniforms to claim they had been newly captured in Goma. Kinshasa calls it a move to discredit its army and a strategy to justify the invasion of parts of the DRC's territory. Apart from ethnicity, Kinshasa points out another root of the conflict. It says rather than seeking to defend Tutsis, Rwanda, with the help of the M23, is primarily seeking to exploit the eastern DRC's vast mineral wealth. It accuses M23 of smuggling key minerals from the DRC to Rwanda, where they enter global supply chains. The M23 rebels have seized key areas in the DRC's mineral-rich east, including the regional capitals of Goma and Bukavu. Last week in Bukavu, gunfire and explosions ripped through the first rally that was held by rebels, and this resulted in multiple deaths and injuries. Both rebels and the DRC government accuse each other of the attack. Now, the conflict has already drawn several other regional nations whose troops are deployed in the DRC to maintain peace. Apart from peacekeeping missions, neighboring Uganda and Burundi have deployed troops to stop the conflict from spilling over to their territories. In the latest, the Ugandan army says its troops have captured Mahagi town in the DRC's Ituri district, which borders Uganda. And last month it announced its troops have taken control of the provincial capital of Bunia. Now, Ituri is just north of the provinces of North and South Kivu, whose capitals have fallen under the control of the M23 group. Analysts fear that Uganda and Rwanda's growing presence in the eastern DRC could lead to another war, like the Second Congo War, which lasted from 1998 to 2003, involving many African countries and resulted in millions of deaths from violence, disease and famine. Will there be a repeat of the deadly Congo Wars? For more on this, we have with us Ms. Lileti Maluleke, a security expert who is joining us live from Johannesburg, South Africa. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, despite the mounting international pressure, what are the key reasons behind the DRC's firm stance against holding direct talks with the M23 rebel group? What alternatives are being considered to de-escalate the situation?
Well, one of the reasons that the DRC perceives the M23 is that it sees it as a threat, and that's why it doesn't want to have direct talks or contact with it. A communication with the M23 would automatically mean that they are recognizing the group's legitimacy, and this is a threat to the DRC's sovereignty and national security. And because of the alleged relationship as well between Rwanda and the M23, a negotiation between the M23 will be viewed as negotiating with rather an external interference in a country's domestic affairs. We have seen the DRC engage in numerous peace talks and peace deals. However, these have failed in the past, and these have also left the DRC government very skeptical about the effectiveness of such negotiations. However, we do need such peace deals to happen again, and this cannot happen without a ceasefire. So the first step that is very necessary at this stage is a ceasefire agreement between all parties that are involved in this. Yeah. And this will be required throughout the whole negotiations. We do need to see real pressure from all our mediators, from all actors that are involved in these attacks, whether this is pressure through diplomatic or economic measures, but we do need to see real pressure coming through.
Right. And the DRC army has accused Rwanda of dressing prisoners in military uniforms to portray them as captured rebels linked to the Rwandan genocide. How credible are these accusations, and what impact could they have on the already strained relations between the two countries?
I mean, we haven't really seen independent confirmation of this, whether from the international community or local journalists within the DRC. However, in the past, both the DRC and Rwanda have accused each other of fabricating events to justify their military actions or to even shift blame. However, these accusations, I mean, if proven to be true, could significantly worsen the already fragile relationship between Rwanda and the DRC. And if they are credible and, it emerges that these claims are actually true, Rwanda should face even stronger international condemnation, whether this is through the sanctions of their political leaders or the country itself. There should be more stronger international condemnation over this issue.
Right. And with the M23's continued advances in Eastern DRC and the growing involvement of regional actors, as you've mentioned, what role can the African Union and international mediators play in preventing further escalation of this conflict?
The AU has a very big role to play. We have seen it back decisions stemming from peace efforts, and it has also collaborated with regional initiatives and will continue to do so. However, there is a need for a more direct involvement and an AU strategy that limits competition, for influence from among the regional groups and among the member states. We need to see mediators also taking very strong stances against the aggressors themselves and against the actors that are involved in the humanitarian actions that we're seeing. We need to call out actors that are actually not doing what they're supposed to do. We need to also make sure that SADC is also very much involved in the regional initiatives as well. We need to make sure that the East African community is also very vocal in this crisis. So what we need is more also of a political alignment and political will from our leaders and the regional initiatives that we have across Africa.
Leleti, thank you very much for being with us on Firstpost Africa and for your valued insights and analysis.
Thank you for having me.
And shifting focus to Sudan now, where a parallel government announced by the paramilitary RSF is racing to grab diplomatic legitimacy. The Libya situation, where Sudan is split into two parts, where separate administrations looms larger than ever, while the Sudanese army, led by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, is making gains on the ground. The RSF, led by Mohamed Dagalo, better known as Hemedti, is attempting to steal legitimacy from its army-led rival. Now, currently, the army-led government in Sudan is the one recognized by the United Nations. Why? Now, experts say that legitimacy as a governing body will make it easier for the RSF to access advanced weaponry from countries abroad. This move could prolong the already devastating war in the country.
Legitimacy is earned, not given. And the first legitimacy is drawn from our people, and this government will earn its legitimacy from its ability to serve the goals of people, providing security and the essential services. This is the main legitimacy needed at this phase. The second legitimacy is from the neighboring countries. If you secure your borders and stop the bloodshed across the borders, displacement, and all the issues on the borders like weapons and drugs, smuggling, and the threat of use and employment of terrorist groups.
Last month, RSF leaders convened in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi and announced a government of peace and unity with its allies. All this while their fighters went on a brutal killing spree in the White Nile state, leaving at least 433 people dead.
We are not a parallel government. We are Sudan's government, and we don't acknowledge that there's a government. As I told you, those responsible for Port Sudan Authority themselves told the Sudanese people that they want to form a government and haven't said a new government. They just said they will form a government, which means there's no government. Our priority is not to buy weapons. This is not a war government, but rather a peace government. Our main mission is to provide services for the people, but to provide services, you have to protect people. As I told you, the government needs to defend itself and to defend its citizens, and to defend, it has the right to acquire defense systems, including aircrafts or other.
The RSF's move to form a rival government has drawn sharp criticism. The United Nations has warned, saying this would further deepen Sudan's fragmentation. Saudi Arabia, which previously mediated ceasefire talks between the two sides, warned against any step or illegal measure taken outside of the framework of official institutions. Kuwait also called it a threat to Sudan's territorial unity. Egypt and Jordan have been the latest countries to criticize the move, while Cairo said it rejects any attempt to threaten the unity and sovereignty of Sudan. Jordan also opposes any moves that could jeopardize Sudan's unity. The war between the Sudanese army's Burhan and RSF's Hemedti is not just a domestic squabble. Sudan is a bridge that links West Asia and Africa, and the country's abundant resources mean the battle has had a larger regional dimension. Gulf heavyweights Saudi Arabia and the UAE view the war as a chance to cement their hegemonic status in West Asia. While Saudi Arabia has reportedly been supporting the army's Burhan, the UAE has been backing the RSF's Hemedti. Both Saudi Arabia and the UAE have long invested in Sudan's economy. The two West Asian giants have also been providing military support to rival sides. Sudan's army and the United Nations have accused Abu Dhabi of supplying arms to the RSF. The United Nations has also repeatedly accused foreign players of prolonging the war in Sudan. Apart from the UAE, Russia and Libya have also been accused of supporting the paramilitary RSF. And apart from Saudi Arabia, Egypt and Iran have reportedly been aiding the Sudanese army. Even the African Union, which has 55 member states, is divided on the issue of whether Sudan will split and on whether any political entity linked to the RSF, which has been accused of genocide, can be condoned. The army, too, is taking steps to form a new executive government. While the RSF held meetings in Nairobi, the Sudanese government in Port Sudan declared that it would announce a civilian government soon. Reports say this is expected to take place once the army takes complete control of Khartoum, where Burhan's forces have been making rapid gains. With both sides vying for legitimacy as the war continues, will the West Asian powerhouses be the decision makers of Sudan's future leadership? Shifting focus to Kenya now, where political battle has intensified in the build-up to the 2027 elections, as the opposition seems to be gearing up to put forth their united front against President William Ruto. Now, Kenya's former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, who was impeached last year after the fallout with Ruto, is seemingly making a political comeback with a mission to oust the Kenyan president. He has declared that he has a strategy to defeat the president in the next polls. Gachagua has vowed to expose Ruto's alleged deception, which he says would ensure Kenyans reject him on the ballot. He outlined a timeline for his campaign, giving Ruto only the time of this year. He says that by 2026, Kenyans would see through Ruto's lies and his influence would diminish. Gachagua was speaking at the launch of the new political party named the People's Liberation Party. It is headed by Kenyan lawyer and opposition veteran Martha Karua. She says that her new party aims to fight, unite and liberate Kenya. Karua has been a fierce critic of President William Ruto and ran in the last election as the running mate of the opposition leader Raila Odinga, who lost out to Ruto. But Odinga and Ruto seem to have joined hands. Now, reports indicate that they may unveil a new political pact ahead of the 2027 elections. Odinga was also Kenya's candidate for the African Union's chairperson election, which he lost. So, as Ruto strengthens his political support, critics are getting united. The launch of the new political party was attended by a group of politicians who see themselves as the new opposition, following the recent thaw between Odinga and Ruto. Among the politicians attending the launch was former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and he listed out various reasons why Kenya needs to remove Ruto from the top job. It's over abductions of critics and extrajudicial killings, to restore the health system and end the affordable housing project, which he says has been awarded to private entities, and over fair pay and economy. On Ruto's alliance with the opposition leader Odinga, he says that the situation for Ruto is like that of a patient taken to the ICU who is put on life support. He claims that the president is now desperate for support and will do anything to ensure his political survival. Ruto's popularity has fallen among Kenyans after plans for new taxes sparked massive youth-led protests last year. The authorities responded violently, with more than 60 killed during the protests and dozens abducted by security forces in the following months, according to rights groups. The new party leader says that she will actively engage the youth, who are expected to play a pivotal role in the next election. Like the rest of Africa, Kenya's population is young. 80% are aged under 35, according to government figures. The impeached deputy president has also called the youth to actively take part in politics, not just on social media. Will opposition strategy dig Ruto's political grave? From East Africa, we should focus to the west, where Guinea-Bissau has locked horns with the pro-West ECOWAS bloc. Now, the country's president, Umaro Sissoco Embalo, has threatened to expel an ECOWAS political mission sent to the country to reach a consensus on how to conduct elections in Guinea-Bissau this year. The tiny West African nation, like many of its neighbors, has a history of coups, and these fears were reignited after a dispute over when President Embalo's term, which began in 2020, should end. Elections in the country that were scheduled for November 2024 were postponed by the president. The opposition in Guinea-Bissau claims President Embalo's term should have expired last week, while the country's Supreme Court of Justice ruled that it ends on the 4th of September. The opposition is calling this delay unconstitutional. The dispute over the president's tenure has heightened tensions that risk unrest. Embalo claims that there have been attempts to overthrow him. In December of 2023, gunfire and clashes erupted in the capital city, after which he dissolved the opposition-controlled parliament. Interestingly, President Embalo's latest rift with ECOWAS comes just days after he visited Moscow for talks with Russian President Putin. The two countries vowed to bolster economic and security ties.
We in Russia are reliable partners. Today I am here, Mr. President, to reaffirm the bonds of friendship that we have between the Russian people and the people of Guinea-Bissau, this fraternal relationship that has always existed.
We are available to always strengthen our bond of cooperation and that with Africa too. I know that you have always maintained relations, not only with Guinea-Bissau, with the entire African continent. And that we owe our independence to you, directly or indirectly. For this we are very grateful.
I know that you have elections this year. I very much hope that the Bisayans will support you and that you will continue to serve as president. The good relations that have developed in recent years between our states are largely associated with your name and are developing with your support.
Russia has also sent thousands of mercenaries to support military leaders in West Africa and help them fight insurgents. Now, among them are Mali's Assimi Goïta, Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré, and Niger's General Chiani. Now, these three countries under their military leaders have officially left the West African bloc after the year of diplomatic tensions. The split was sparked just after the three junta-ruled states refused ECOWAS demands to restore diplomatic rule. Now, after the latest standoff with ECOWAS, will Guinea-Bissau be the next to quit the pro-West bloc? If it does, it will be a major setback for the 50-year-old bloc, which is considered Africa's most important regional group. So with fears of a conflict and a coup now in Guinea-Bissau, did President Mbalo rush to Putin for security aid? Will Russia now send mercenaries to another West African nation? And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again tomorrow at the same time. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.